This is the Jerusalem Post podcast travel edition. Coming up.
The way the Chinese see it is that Israel and China share a history of 5,000 years. We're both very ancient civilizations that share some common history.
In 1925, the Jewish living here built a very big school here, and all their children went to this school.
I am so excited. This is one of the weirdest places and unusual tourist attractions you're going to see, and it's here in Tianjin.
So sit back and enjoy the trip with David Harris and Mark Gordon.
Welcome to Beijing's Southern Station. It's one of 7 massive railway stations serving the capital of China, incredible population of some 23 million people. I'm with a group of 7 Israelis who are on a roots trip to learn about where their parents lived when they were children, in some cases where their grandparents were buried, and we're starting our journey by heading for Tianjin. Now, you may not have heard of Tianjin because it's a tiny village of just 14 million people. It's a half an hour train ride on a high-speed train journey from Beijing. And what we're going to be doing there is learning about the Jewish history of the place. I believe that there is still a synagogue, which we will also take a look at. So we're going to be spending a day or so in Tianjin, which had a Jewish community at its peak of around 5,000 people. And most of the time it was more around the 2,000 to 3,000 mark. It had a range of institutions. Some very well-known Jewish people came out of the city, business people who founded businesses and industries in the Tianjin area as the city grew. But we just got a call from our tour guide and we are now off on the train to Tianjin.
This is Mark Gordon from the Jerusalem Post podcast travel edition. Find us on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter at MarkDavidPod, or mail us at markdavidpod@gmail.com.
Good morning, David.
Hello and good afternoon from my part of the world.
Where in China are you today?
I left Beijing this morning on this odyssey. For those of you who didn't hear, you can go back to our last podcast and hear all about the trip to Beijing, visiting different places from where Mark and I were a year ago. I am now in Tianjin.
That's easy for you to say. I remember going to the Jewish synagogue in Shanghai, although it was being restored in the museum. What's there to see in Tianjin, or do you not know yet? It'll all be a big surprise for you.
It's all going to be a big surprise. I'm on a bus right now heading out to all of those fascinating places. I think we're probably going to see a synagogue, and I think that's the only thing that's really left of the Jewish community. But there are also places where there were schools and businesses and that type of thing. So our very wonderful young guide by the name of Wei, she is going to presumably tell us more. Hopefully we'll hear a bit from her afterwards, though she doesn't speak English, but I might have persuaded someone to translate her for us.
Lovely. I'm looking at Barcelona.
Are you in Barcelona or you're on a ship?
I am on a ship that has just arrived in Barcelona. We've got about 8 or 9 hours before Shabbat. So we're going to go on a whistle-stop tour of Barcelona. We have a guided walk, and then we'll just wander around and see what the city has to offer.
You've been to Barcelona twice, 3 times before, but your good lady hasn't. What's she looking forward to?
Breakfast, I think. We've got a walking tour that hopefully will take in a little bit of Gaudi, a little bit of La Rambla, the main shopping street, and then some of the Gothic old quarter where what's left of the Jewish community have a headquarters. There's not a lot, to be fair, because in the 14th century, the lovely people of Barcelona expelled or converted all the Jews that were here. But there is a very small community here. It'll be interesting to see what it looks like today in 2025.
Well, enjoy it. I mean, we're mainly going to be focusing in this podcast on the Chinese side of the story rather than the Mediterranean. So I prepared a quiz question. Do you want to guess what it is?
Does it involve a Israeli prime minister?
No, why? What were you thinking?
Well, there's a former Israeli prime minister with roots to China, but maybe save that one for Harbin.
Yes, no, good point. I had not thought of that as the question, but it's a good one. The answer is Ehud Olmert, of course. But the question that I am going to pose, in the journey that I'm going to be taking over the next few days, we're going to be heading to here, Tianjin, where we've just arrived, also off to Harbin, and finally to Shanghai. So my question is the following. Which famous Talmudical college or yeshiva shifted all of its students from Poland via Lithuania to Shanghai?
Ooh, I should know the answer to that one, but I don't remember it. I'm sorry.
That's all right. All you need to say now is the answer at the end of the pod.
The answer at the end of the pod.
Outside of Buenos Aires, where would you recommend visiting?
Tell us why you've got a passion for Jewish history as an author.
Is there something unique here that you won't see anywhere else in Georgia or even the world?
Why on earth would you take this incredible boat and launch it in Israel, of all places?
Has David Hasselhoff been to the David Hasselhoff Museum?
You're listening to the Jerusalem Post podcast travel edition with Mark Gordon and David Harris. I'm now standing outside 55 Nanjing Road, or as it was formerly known, number 14 Shanghai Road. It was located at the intersection of Nanjing Road and the Zhengzhou Road. And the reason I'm here is that in 1939 and up to September of 1940, this is where Tianjin's synagogue was constructed. It's a Gothic style, almost church-like building with concrete walls, and at its peak it could accommodate about 400 people for tefillot, for religious prayers. The synagogue was sold to the church and later converted into the Catholic Little Camp Church. After the Cultural Revolution in China, the place fell into disrepair, and there are actually photographs inside showing that it was not really in good nick. From the early 80s and into the 90s, it was used as a storage place for materials of the city's House Exchange Conference, whatever that was. And you could still see the Star of David, the Magen David, on the entrance. It's subsequently, as with so many synagogues in Europe that Mark and I have discovered, been converted into a restaurant. So the place looked like it was falling apart 40 years ago, and locals took it on. They've restored it. I'm now looking at the entrance, and the entrance, it really does look like a church. There's a huge arch, and within the arch there's a stained glass window in which you can still make out very clearly the Chanukiah. Actually, it's hard to see because of the sun, but it might even be a menorah. I'm not sure how many branches there are, but you can clearly see the shape of it. And if you look up higher, you can see where the Magen David once would have been. Today, underneath the place where the Star of David was, it says number 55, which is the name of the restaurant. I'm now going to walk you in and take you on an audio guided tour. Now, I don't have anybody with me from the Tianjin community or descendants thereof. Everybody on this trip is actually from Harbin, way up to the north, about 1,000 kilometers, 700 miles or so north. But down below there is an area which most likely was the mikvah, and now, in I guess a twist of fate, is actually a spa. If you go up the stairs, let me take you up. I don't know if the ladies, the women, had a gallery or if they sat at the side of the men. I've got a feeling that it was a gallery. It's now been converted into a dining area. It doesn't look like a restaurant. It looks more like it's a dining kitchen, maybe for older people, something of that nature. I'm actually, you know what, now standing next to, and you'll be able to hear it here. That's the window that I saw down below, and I would say that it's got 1, 2, 3, 4. It's 8-branch candelabrum, making it a Chanukiah, with the shamash in the middle. And as you see from the inside, it's blue. Very light coloured blue. Going past Chinese flags on my left in the lobby. I'm now going to go in through the, I guess what you would call the vestibule or the lobby. I'm assuming these are not the original doors, but you can see where the doors would have been to walk into the synagogue. I'm now at the back of the synagogue, and maybe you can hear some music in the background, very nice jazz. There is a stage where the Kehillah would have sat. In the middle there are some beautiful tables and chairs, and then where the Aron Kodesh, the Holy Ark, would have been, is now a bar, and it actually says exactly where the centre point would have been, where the Sifrei Torah, the Torah scrolls, were kept. It says number 55 winery. I'm going to join my group and share some thoughts with them, and we'll get back to you a little bit later. Is myth like what someone is before they become a myth is?
Have we just come back from a winery and we're a little bit sicker?
This is the most bizarre tourist attraction in Israel, I reckon.
I'm going for a steak. Let's hope it will love me tender.
A juniper bush! A juniper bush!
And he's buried here and in Jerusalem, possibly. There's a bird behind me. I need to run, but I've got no legs.
You're listening to the Jerusalem Post podcast travel edition with Mark Gordon and David Harris. You're listening to the Jerusalem Post podcast travel edition with Mark Gordon, who isn't in this particular episode with me, and David Harris. Mark staying back in Israel and travelling around the Mediterranean on a cruise while I've been in China. And now it's time to get an Israeli eye view on, I guess, life in China, and also the relationship from a cultural perspective between China and Israel. And we're going to do that in the company of a guest who has travelled all the way to meet me from the Israeli embassy in Beijing. So can you introduce yourself to our listeners, please?
My name is Gabriela Rick. I'm the culture and academia attaché in the Israeli embassy in Beijing. I've been in my role here in Beijing for 2 years now, and that's me.
What role do you play in this job in creating a positive, strong relationship between two countries, whichever those two countries happen to be?
So the role is to bring Israeli culture to the country that we're in, so in this case to China. And our role here is to expose the Chinese audience to Israeli culture, because through culture you can get to know each other. This is a bridge between people in the end of the day. It's a bridge between the human aspects of people and the commonalities between us. So this is why it's so important.
Israel is such an amazing centre of culture in the broadest sense. Today people think about cooking as being part of culture, but there's the history and just every aspect of Israeli life to some extent is cultural. How do you pass all of that on in practical terms to the Chinese people?
Okay, so Israel has an amazing culture and also a lot of creativity in all fields. Theater, film, music, all fields of culture have immense creativity in Israel. And the Chinese people, they know this. They already recognize this and they already value this. The Israeli theater is really valued here. They know about a lot. They know, they recognize, they admire Israeli writers, film, in music, in these fields where there were connections in the past, where they got to know Israeli culture. The people here in the field really appreciate it and admire it.
So how does that manifest itself amongst Chinese people? When you come to a place like China where there is a completely different culture, you've not just got to market Israeli culture, you've also got to understand your audience. There's an expression that we say, it's not what you say, it's what they hear. How do you understand the Chinese way and bring the Israeli culture into that world, if that makes sense?
It's a very interesting question, very difficult and very challenging. First of all, the way the Chinese see it is that Israel and China share a history of 5,000 years. We're both very ancient civilizations that share some common history. Even if they didn't meet, they both have this strong history that they bring to today and also use it to look into the future. So this common ground is very important. So let's say the Hebrew language is something that is very fascinating for the Chinese people. What is this kind of language that came out from the Bible and is still being used today? Like the Chinese language, that is really, really ancient and is still being used today, and it's of course changed and evolved through the years. So there's common things that can connect between the two cultures.
During this series of podcasts from China, looking at the connection between Israel and the Jewish people and China, I've been following around a group of 7 Israelis who have their roots in this case, all of them in Harbin, but generally in China. What does this historic connection symbolize for you?
Okay, this is something that the regular Israelis don't even know, and even me, as an Israeli, that Jews used to live in China, that they used to have huge communities here. They had big communities with many facilities, industries, and they used to be very influential, especially in Harbin and in Shanghai. So this is something that we don't really know. It's really very interesting to have this group here, to reconnect between this past and today in the present, and to learn about these connections and this history.
I get the impression that you're almost experiencing it with them, but you're also on a very steep learning curve in terms of that relationship.
These things have been researched in the past, and there have been people who know about these things, but still I think that as a society we don't really know about it, and being here as a diplomat, it's really important to connect to these things that used to be here. Usually the feeling is that Israel and China are very far away from each other in culture, like you said. They have different cultures, completely different countries, and there's very few bridges. So this is a bridge that existed in the past. It's very important to reconnect it and hold on to it. It connects us between the people these days. So this is why it's so important for me and for us as an embassy to be here and to learn and to see and to hear and to get to know it again and hear all about it.
When you first learned that you were coming to China, I'm guessing that you maybe took some books out of a library, or you went online, or you spoke to your colleagues in China or people who've served in China to find out about the country. What type of things, from a cultural perspective, appealed to you about coming here?
China is very, very, very interesting place to be, and everybody told me this before I came. But it's very different from what we have, but it's also very, very rich and deep and historically and culturally in every aspect. I was expecting this, and it's true. It's a really interesting experience to live here and to experience this culture through its various manifestations and all aspects, and to learn about this history and this place. It's fascinating. So everybody was saying that it's a different place and you'll learn about it, and it's been like this. That has been my experience as well.
When you go back home after your time here or on to your next station, what will you take with you, do you think, from this relationship between Israel and China? Things that you've learnt here or experiences that you've had with Israelis coming in here, what will you take away with you as memories, maybe things that have influenced you?
I'm going to take away a lot of things. I think it's extremely interesting for me to see how the Chinese people respond to Israeli culture and how much fascination and interest they have to learn and to know more about it. Any event that we've had has always been really, really interesting. Even if we have a concert or a lecture or an artist coming or showing a film, a movie, we have a fascinated audience sitting in the hall, and they're asking such intelligent questions about Israel, about the art, some questions are general, some questions are specific, but you can see how through this small perspective they're getting into our culture and learning and observing and really interested in it. So this has been a fascinating experience. I'm sure I'm going to take it with me everywhere I go.
Do you always know the answers to their questions?
Not always, no, definitely not. They have really interesting questions.
Gabriella, thank you very much indeed. And I also want to say thank you to Alon.
I'm very happy to speak to you today.
It's very much appreciated. Thank you.
Tianjin Fact File. The international gateway for Tianjin is Beijing. Beijing has two main international airports, Capital Airport and the newer Deqing Airport with the world's largest single terminal building. Flights from the US arrive in Capital Airport with Air China from New York, San Francisco and Los Angeles. United Airlines also flies from San Francisco. Air China also flies direct from London, Melbourne, Dubai, Frankfurt, Munich, Vancouver and many other major cities. You can fly to Beijing direct with Air France, Emirates, Etihad, KLM and Lufthansa. There are direct flights from Tel Aviv with Hainan Airlines a couple of times a week. The best way to reach Tianjin from Beijing is by high-speed railway. It's some 120 kilometers or 75 miles, but takes just 30 minutes from Beijing South Railroad Station. A regular single ticket costs around $7 to $8. There's a train once every 20 minutes during the day. You can take a rideshare vehicle via the Didi app. Journey time is up to 90 minutes and will set you back around $60. Recommended Tianjin hotels include the Ritz-Carlton, the Four Seasons, Shangri-La and Banyan Tree Riverside. $1 will buy you 7.05 yuan as of the end of 2025. The region's climate is continental monsoon, with hot humid summers and brief but cold dry winters. Spring and autumn are the best time to be in Tianjin, particularly in the months of April, May, September and October. Tianjin cuisine is known for being salty, savoury, aromatic and very street food driven. Its number one dish is gubuli baozi, steamed pork buns. The name literally means the dog won't pay attention. Jianbing guzi is a mung bean batter breakfast crepe filled with egg, green onions, cilantro and chili sauce. Erdogan xiaogao are deep fried sticky rice cakes filled with sweet red bean paste.
The tour guide and Miss Wei told me like in this area from this 122 to 126 and in the past a lot of Jewish people living in this area. They had schools and hospitals, but right now I don't know if you can figure out, so we have to check along the road from here and all the way to the 126.
So we're in a residential side street, still quite busy in the middle of town. There's a skyscraper at the end of the street. The voice you heard there was that of Jay, who's our wonderful host from the CCECC. I think what he's trying to say is let's go mezuzah hunting. There's a modern building. Oh wow, just looking up, it's a huge tower just above my head. I hadn't even noticed. Passing a little car. It's one of those smart tiny cars and it's got pictures of Minnie Mouse all the way around it. Lovely red colour there. There are lots and lots of, you know, those kind of happy, wavy animal characters that you might have seen either on Chinese shows or Chinese adverts. They are absolutely everywhere. And the other thing that is ubiquitous here are the bicycles that are available for hire from the local municipality. And right in front of us, by the riverside, there is a rotunda. Surrounding the rotunda are 3 or 4 men in military historic uniforms from throughout the ages. But right in front of them, there are 5 or 6 people participating in something akin to Tai Chi. So we're walking, as Jay said, in a square and just generally trying to take in the experience. The river to our left, which is known as the Sea River, it's such a beautiful waterfront. A lot of the modern buildings that are here are stunningly gorgeous, but upriver there are also buildings that make you feel that you're in Budapest or Paris. The bridges across the river are absolutely magnificent. One of them has the must-have big wheel, they call it the Tianjin Eye, which goes up to, I think, 130 meters.
Here in 1925, I checked, and also with the guide, in 1925, the Jews living here built a very big school here, and all their children went to this school. learning, educated here. But now it's kind of dismantled, so you see the Chinese style buildings are here.
So they're trying to assess whether any of the buildings that are standing in front of us actually could date back to the Second World War period.
If they want to build a new building here, and it's very center, so they will build like very high building. So I guess this must be the old building and renovate it to be like this.
Presumably in all the big cities, like this is a city of 14 million people, you have to build up as well as out.
Yes, exactly.
So Jay was just saying that this whole area was part of the British concession. This city in those days was split between 9 different countries, the Austrians, the Hungarians, and the Brits amongst the leading ones. And the area where the Jews lived was under the British concession. And Jay was saying he thinks that the reason was because the Brits gave them a very easy time. This older building in front of us, which is kind of Art Deco, international style, right next to a tower which has, about 15 floors. And the tower where there could be potentially balconies, it's all fenced in with iron grills and sufficiently high up enough for it not to be because of theft, but just simply Chinese don't like balconies. So I've left the group behind and I've walked into one of the courtyards. This is very funny. If you're not Jewish, it might sound a bit weird, but a lot of Jewish people, especially if they're into heritage, will actually go searching for signs of places where Jewish people once lived. And that's what I'm doing right now. This definitely is an older building. The homes are typically Chinese looking, beautiful flowers on the doors, and there's a tiny little bamboo forest outside one of these homes. Actually, this looks like it might even be a hotel or a gallery since 1901. So there you go, we found our first clue. I'm outside a traditional Chinese incense store, and it says that, well, the question is whether the building is from 1901 or the incense store, the family running it, has been since 1901, and I have no idea what the answer is. Anyway, it's a 4-story building with an inner courtyard, which is where I am, and yeah, I'm none the wiser.
This is the Jerusalem Post Podcast Travel Edition. Find us on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter at MarkDavidPod, or mail us at markdavidpod@gmail.com.
The brick timber structure building was constructed in the year 1928 with a courtyard around, the fair-faced wall and the red tiles on the sloping roofs.
Everybody's been having a giggle because they're all trying to read something that's written in Chinese and in English, and it's a plaque on the wall here in the British concession, and it's an introduction to the historic architecture, and it talks about a man called Nathan, who's a British Jew who came to China in 1910 working in the Kaiping mining administration, and then he was promoted to be the general manager of the Kailan mining administration in 1928. The brick timber structure building, which is behind this wall, was constructed in the year 1928 with a courtyard around. It had what the plaque describes as a fair-faced wall. I'm being photographed while I'm reading this to you. And red tiles on the sloping roofs that are used in the way of construction. The entire building is arranged in an unsymmetrical way, with the arch portico at the main entrance as the centre. But who was Nathan? We don't know.
Hello, 我叫魏佳慧。
I was born here. My name is Wei Jiahui. I was born in Tianjin. I am 32 years old, and I have been a tour guide for 10 years already.
You get 2 minutes to tell me about the highlights of Tianjin for tourists.
The biggest highlight I would say is this area concession, because over 100 years ago, the foreign countries, they invaded our country. They landed from the Bohai, the sea, and came to this area, occupied this area, and started to dominate this area. You can see all these beautiful, not Chinese style buildings. All of them are very, very good, preserved and kept, stay the same, so people can see the different styles. And the second highlight is the Haihe, We call it Mother River, and we just passed through it in this afternoon.
So the river's the Hai He, which is the sea river, right? Does that mean that it's, if I say a tidal river, where the sea comes upstream? Is that right?
Yes. On the left side, when we were on the way, it collects with Bohai, the sea, and this side, it collects with another river. Yeah, Jinhang, Dayunhe is very famous in China.
Can you see the colours of the two rivers? Can you tell the difference in the waters?
It's very difficult. It cannot distinguish from the sea and the river by the color. That's why we call it Haihe, not He, because part of the sea, part of the river is very difficult.
We need to get on with part of the tour, but I've got one more question for now. Tell us a little bit about the architecture along the river.
建筑物的特色呀，母亲河的建筑物特色。
There are different concessions. For example, Austria, Italian. So in different concession, it has that country's architect. So it's different.
别的租界的不同的租界的建筑风格是吧？嗯。
You're very lucky to live in this city. At least from the couple of hours that I've been here, it's a very beautiful city.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for translating, Jay.
You're welcome.
Have you listened to the Jerusalem Post podcast travel edition yet? Hi there, I'm David Harris, and together with co-host Mark Gordon, we bring you the very best of the world of travel.
We've had our safety instructions and we're in a basket.
Either the cars are shrinking or we're going higher.
Now sat on a high chair.
You're listening to the last will and testament of Mark Simon Gordon.
We're in the independent micronation of Ujupis.
If I wasn't married, I'd be chasing away your indigenous 78-year-old and taking you for myself.
The drink afterwards, just to calm my nerves, will be number one, but this is definitely up there.
The Jerusalem Post podcast travel edition brings you the joys of travel and tourism. So why not subscribe today wherever you get your podcasts? I am so excited to be here right now. I have to tell you, this is one of the weirdest places and unusual tourist attractions you're going to see. And it's here in Tianjin. Just listen to this man making his noise. He's selling that's a Peppa Pig with a little thing that goes around a stick under it. And he's selling it on the street. Next to him, there are people selling magnets and cards. There are lots of people taking selfies. Across the road, I don't know what's being said, but unfortunately I can't go and record what's being said. We're all going into the porcelain house. This is a remarkable structure. It's become a tourist sensation, the number one place to visit in this town. Going past, we're here in November, and the security officer who's letting people in is wearing the most beautiful fur hat. Absolutely stunning. This is beautiful. Hello, it's lovely. You're welcome. Hello, ni hao. I do get a rise out of these things. So we've come through to the courtyard.
Okay, hello everyone, and we warmly welcome you all to our China house. And our curator will hope you can always come. So I will tell you the English in our museum.
And it is so weird. There is a house here. I will try to explain, but I'm not as good as Mark at describing. It is just covered in tiles of every single colour, shape, variety. On the entrance to the house above, a wooden portico is written China Dream. On the walls are photographs, I guess, of famous people who have been to visit the porcelain house. And when I say photographs, I mean hundreds. My colleagues don't even know what this place is yet and are busy taking selfies, apart from Yaki, who's on his phone again.
I want an explanation.
And I'm waiting for an explanation as well. The whole group has just run around and started taking photographs of this utterly weird place. So we'll fill in the gaps in a minute.
This wall, we call it the peace wall. Why? Because it is including 635 blue and white bottles all over the wall. So it means 1 year have 335 days. So means a year peaceful and yes. So we all bless you all the peaceful.
Well, I hope you understood some of that. Her English was absolutely impeccable. The problem was the quality of the microphone. It would have been much better without the speaker. But there were so many people in this place. In fact, we're just going past the final part, which is roses that have been stuck on the outer wall. Many hundreds of roses, maybe not thousands. We're heading away past some strange machine dispensing selfie newspaper articles and making our way through streams of young people and local rental bicycles. This whole area is very interesting. It's very colonial, much as we found when we were in Shanghai, also surrounded by huge buildings. What I can say is it's beautifully clean. It's much, much quieter than Beijing, far fewer car horns and so on. I say exactly as a car horn beeps in the distance. I mean, the area where we are right now is the most touristy bit, but it's really fascinating city to visit. This group of Israelis that I'm with clearly are finding it fascinating to learn the history of the colonial periods, because of course that colonial time here is when the Jewish community was really at its peak. And that was an amazing end to our trip to Tianjin. We haven't yet really heard from the members of this group, but that is in the next episode, because from Tianjin, after all of my colleagues have gone shopping, and believe me, they know where every discounted store is in Tianjin, but I'm tired, I'm headed back to my hotel room. But what we will be doing from here, first thing, is taking a 7-hour train journey through more than 1,000 kilometers, or about 700 miles, all the way up the eastern side of China, way up to where there can be freezing cold temperatures at this time of year. And there, for this group of people, well, you'll begin to hear their voices as we go to Harbin, which really is why they wanted to come here. Because whilst the story of Tianjin is fascinating and its small Jewish community of 5,000, it's really up in Harbin where the ancestors of my friends and colleagues came from. So that's in the next episode, and in terms of the quiz question, well, you're going to have to wait till the end of the next episode when Mark pops up and tells us the answer to that quiz question. So on behalf of Mark, who is sailing the high seas, and myself, well, I wish you an amazing, amazing couple of weeks, and join us again. Take care for now.